The reputation. So Kieran's going to tell us all about how we can help our insureds try to save their good name when it comes to data breach.
Missteps. So let me start with a few things that companies should really take care to avoid because they're very common. The first is waiting to communicate until all the facts are in. Now, I shouldn't say until we get the facts, and this gets back to a very lively discussion we were having at breakfast this morning, and I want to be clear. I don't mean to say that you should communicate before you really know anything or before you know anything substantial. Of course, and that laptop incident was an interesting one. I mean, you don't have to communicate within 3 hours when there's a laptop in the back of somebody's car. That's not the point. But the point is also that companies tend to want to, for very good reason, wait to say anything until they're really sure what exactly is happening. They want to make sure they don't say something that turns out to not be correct later, and that's an absolutely understandable impulse. But the problem is that the public and the media environment just won't let you get away with that. People will expect you to, within a reasonable amount of time, and reasonable is the loophole word here, because in every situation it's going to be different, but to communicate that at least something has happened. That is something that's going to be extremely important. Part of the challenge here again is that we understand, I mean, the notification requirements vary from state to state. We've already seen the SEC guidance is very foggy. The second common mistake is relying on the accuracy of the facts as they come in. They are going to change. So you don't want to set false expectations, for example, of the size of a breach or whatever, by taking as gospel what you think is true when it first happens. You've got to put all kinds of caveats around that language. That's okay. As long as you're honest about that, as long as you're honest that this is what we know now, this is what we think we know now, but we expect, that information to change in the coming days, that's fine. Common mistake number 3 is similar to that, and that is making commitments based on what you think the situation is, which is the easiest and fastest way to paint yourself into a corner, which is what this lovely visual is, if you haven't figured that out. Essentially, you have clients who will say, based on the initial information they get from their forensics guys, they will say, go out to their consumers or their customers and say, we had to take our system down because of the breach, but we'll have it up within 48 hours. You just don't want to say that. Because A, you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And B, if it's a cyber attack by groups like Anonymous or other hacktivists, if you tell them when you're going to be back up, they'll make sure you're not up. So that's another common mistake as well. So all right, so those are the don'ts. What are the do's? Because there are some, I think, best practices. Remember that in these situations, companies tend to feel very victimized, and they are. They are victims of these attacks, and they're very angry. But you have to always put yourself in the place of those who may be affected, whose data may be affected by this breach. It's their expectations that you need to understand and you need to be able to fulfill. That's part of the reason that you should, I think of it as over-communicating. Again, not communicating before you have even sufficient knowledge to say anything, or not communicating information as fact when you don't know whether it's fact, but make sure you're at least following sort of what standard, what the moving standard is for victim assistance, credit tracking, whatever, making people whole. That is, doing any less than that, again, it's just something that's going to tick somebody off, and everybody who's ticked off is a potential headline.